You're watching Training Camp with Adam Marburger, exclusively on CBT News.
Welcome to Training Camp, exclusively on CBT News. I'm your host, Adam Marburger. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt in automotive. This show is designed to give real solutions in real time so you can make an immediate impact in your store. Today we have somebody here that's very special. He's a regular here. He's a wealth of knowledge, doing big things, helping lots of dealers at scale. So welcome to the show, Mr. Glenn Lundy. Welcome back. How are you, my
Thanks,
friend?
man. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You seem to be traveling like crazy lately. How did you get to Atlanta? Where have you been? What's new right now in Glenn
Oh
Lundy's
my
world?
gosh, where have I been? I've been in like 8 different states in probably the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's right now, there's a season of urgency, man. It's a season of urgency and we are running. There's opportunity everywhere. Everything's moving fast as can be. And so we're just trying to take advantage of every opportunity we can get.
Yeah. So since I have limited time with you, I want to get right to it. Right?
Yeah.
So, what's the biggest lie the industry keeps telling itself? You work with hundreds. You're not working with 20 dealers. You're working with hundreds of them.
Yeah.
What's the biggest lie our industry still believes?
The biggest lie our industry still believes is that the old school principles are going to hold true. So forever, dealers have always been resilient. We know that, right? But this family-owned and operated small dealership selling 60, 70, 80 cars a month, you've been able to do that for decades and decades and decades in this industry. You're not going to be able to do that moving forward. The competition's too fierce. They're too big. They got too much money. And so massive consolidation is going to continue to happen. And there's a lot of dealers who think, we're just going to do what we've always done because it's worked for the last 40 years. Yeah. It's not going to work moving forward.
Yeah. If we keep doing what we're doing now, we're going to keep getting what we're getting now, right?
Well, and in a lot of cases, that was okay.
It was.
Because they were getting $1 million a year net. So it's like, well, that works. And that's one of the biggest danger areas for any successful person, any successful business, is when it's working. It's like, I don't want to change anything because it works. Yeah. But now the stuff that's coming, man, it's just can't hang in there like that anymore.
Yeah. So if you had 90 days to have, if you gave a task to one store, you got 90 days to double production, what 3 things should they immediately do?
Yeah, immediately you have to get used car mindset versus a new car mindset, because you're not going to be able to double your production in 90 days when you still have manufacturers that are determining what vehicles you get and what vehicles you don't. So you have to have a used car mindset, first of all. Second of all, you have to shift from paid advertising as a strategy to organic marketing as a strategy. You need attention. You're going to have the right cars, but now you have to get attention. Attention is shifted. Paid advertising costs way too costly nowadays and does not convert as well as it used to. The third thing that you need to do is you have to understand that on your floor, you currently have a system that is old and antiquated. Requiring 1 car every 3 days out of your salespeople is ridiculous. Yeah. 1 car a day every day that they're at work, but it's your responsibility as the leader to put them in a position to be able to do that with your marketing efforts and your inventory efforts.
So I want to piggyback, before I move on, I want to piggyback off of something that you said. And it was something that you said in ADA last year. You had a freaking room jam-packed. I couldn't even get a seat. I'm in the back of the room. Hands off to you for that.
That was fun.
It was a wonderful session. But you said something that made my heart smile because I believe it to my core. But I never said it the way you said it. And I say it now. I stole it from you. I give you credit sometimes. But paid organic. Yeah. It's built my company.
Right.
It's built your company. Let's talk about what is paid organic. Break that down. What does that really mean?
Yeah. So paid organic, to give like a clear example of paid organic media. If you look at Mr. Beast, he's an expert at paid organic. So he'll invest $2 million to make a video that people will watch, and then he releases it organically, versus he's not paying to run the ad and put it in front of people and so on and so forth. He's paying to create content that people want to watch. So it's paid organic. It's making an investment in attention-grabbing content that people will actually enjoy, and then distributing it organically.
Okay, love that. Yeah. And I tell you, and I wanted to ask that question because we're here to help people.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We're here to help people. And I think if more, not just automotive, but we're here to talk automotive, but whether it's your personal brand, you own a flower shop, it doesn't matter what you do. That's how you win in today's world. It's
No doubt.
there's a time and place to do some paid ads, events, and things like that. But for the most part, it's the organic and spend a couple bucks to have somebody that knows how to run a camera, and get the right editing. And then when you get the funds to bring it in-house, bring it in-house.
Just imagine, man. Imagine you're a dealer. You're investing $100,000 a month in advertising, which this is very common in our industry. Take 20% of that. Take 20 grand a month. Keep the 80, do what you've always done. With 20 grand a month, you could make some of the most amazing attention-grabbing content. You could take a helicopter, take it up in the air, drop 5,000 donuts over the city. You would get more coverage off dropping 5,000 donuts out of a helicopter than you'll ever get off of running an ad that says $299 down and $299 a month.
Yeah, I agree. There's something that's on my mind. Dealers measure a whole lot of things. There's so many things that we're looking at, right? What is almost every dealer measuring that they shouldn't be measuring anymore?
Well, I think I would say impressions. A very common KPI in most dealerships is they look at impressions, and a lot of their advertising agencies want to show them impressions. Look, we got you 600,000 impressions. We got you, 30,000 impressions over here. You had 47. Like, dude, I'm selling the same amount of cars that I sold 10 years ago. Like, what does impressions mean? It doesn't mean shit. Is what it means. Like, I need to see results. I need to see movement. I need to see actual conversions, which most dealers will look at conversions, but they're like way up here. They're looking way too high. So I would say the KPI that needs to go is impressions, get it out, and instead start measuring how many cars are actually going over the curb.
And these marketing companies, they sure love to take... They love to claim that came from them.
Oh, yeah.
I deal with it in my agency.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, come on. This guy followed me on social, sent me a message on social, and went to the website to fill out a form, and you think that lead was yours.
That's right. Yeah, they love the impressions.
So you're in a lot of stores, virtually, physically, you're all over. When you walk into a dealership, how long does it take you personally to know it's like, hey, this thing's going to either win or struggle? How long does it take you to figure that out?
Oh, I mean, here's the little tell. Now, don't tell anybody this, Adam. When I walk into a dealership and I walk around, I always get the tour right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. When I get the tour, if all of the employees engage with the GM or owner that's giving me the tour, hey, how are you? Good morning. That's all happening while I'm on the tour. I know we're in a store that we can transform quick. When that doesn't happen, when we just walk through rooms and nobody says hi, nobody says good morning, nobody's high-fiving, that's when we know like this is worthless. This is not going to happen unless there's a change of the guards, leadership-wise. Transformation is not happening in that dealership, and it happens more often than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in stores too where it's cold. It's like you're walking through a showroom. You got all these sales associates, and nobody's saying hi, and it doesn't look like anybody's being real productive anyway.
Right.
Now, I've heard you say this in the past, and I really wanted to ask you this question specifically today, is I've heard you say culture is not built in sales meetings.
Right.
So where's culture built?
Yeah, so culture ultimately is the product of the decisions that are made every single day in that organization. Sometimes people think culture is this weird, like an intangible thing, but really it just comes down to like the culture in my house, for example. Culture in my house is we're early risers, we're productive throughout the day, we're kind to one another, we celebrate each other. Like that culture has been built because Dad gets up at 3:40 in the morning and everybody knows it. My wife does her Bible study at 6 a.m. Everybody knows it. At the end of every day, we do gratitude. Everybody says what they're grateful for. And then we put one kid in the middle of the room and we tell that kid what we love about him. So those actions every day is what creates an environment of kindness and love and early risers, right? So culture is simply a product. It's a byproduct of the actions that are being taken in that dealership every single day. It has nothing to do with Saturday morning sales meeting.
Culture is such a buzzword too. Everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
Everybody everybody wants to have this great culture, but very few people are taking real action and steps to actually create it. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, so let me ask you this. I didn't even have this plan to ask you. This is just right on my head, tip of my tongue right now. So you're working with a dealer group that, let's just say, may not be your ideal client.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we don't work with everyone, right? Bad culture. But the dealer admits it. You got a dealer that goes, listen, I'm the problem. Maybe they read my book
Right.
and said, I'm the problem. I need to get out of my own way. I've created a pretty rough culture here. I know I'm the leader. Can you help me? What would be some of the first steps you would do? First of all, being honest and being self-aware, knowing that, hey, I'm a dealer. I know I've created kind of a bad culture, but I do want to fix it. Where would you start with them?
Yeah, so fundamentally, we let them know that if you change the way you start your day in your business or in your life, it ultimately creates a transformation all the way around. So we can transform those things through these daily habits that we have to start to create in the dealership. Now, I do tell every dealer right at the gate, first 30 days, everyone's going to be excited. You're going to have fun. You're doing something new. It's cool. Second 30 days, you're going to lose people. And it's going to be the people you never thought you were going to lose. They're either going to quit or you're going to have to fire them. It happens every single time. Month 2, when people are in my program, it's a bloodbath in their stores because they're actually staying consistent with doing the behaviors to shift the culture. At first, people are like, they're not going to stick with it, so I'll just go along with it for a little bit. After you stick with it for 30, 40 days, people start to freaking bail. But the good news is, after you clear all that out, we get into day 60, day 75, day 90. Now we start to reap the rewards of this transformation. But it's really what's done daily. So 8:30 a.m. is team meeting. It's structured a certain way, 9 o'clock a.m., we're all walking the lot together. 9:30, we're doing this. 9:45, we're doing this. 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock. Every minute from the time that store opens until lunchtime has to be very carefully curated in order to start to shift that culture. Change the way you start your day, it changes everything.
And I'm going to ask this too. I recently ran into a scenario where we were in on a deal, got real close, severely underperforming. I mean, we're less than $800 a transaction. This store needs real help.
Yeah.
The dealer principal wants the help. The general manager does not want any extra training in there. Right. And then the finance manager threatened to quit if they brought training in-house to help them.
Perfect.
What do you do there? Because I know what I would do. What would you do?
Well, you ask the owner very, very, to be kind is to be clear. So be very clear with the owner. And you just ask them, are you prepared to be very short-staffed and fire these people if they're not willing to do what we need to do? And if the answer is no, I don't want to do that, then it's like, hey, call me when you do. I'm not going to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time. If we're not going to get a result, we're not going to get a result. Yeah. You said 2 key things: a GM who doesn't want any additional help, so he's not coachable. So you already have an issue right there, period. That store's never going to grow. And then you have a finance manager who's threatening to quit. The only people who threaten to quit are people who have already thought about quitting. And if they threaten to quit now, they're going to quit at some point.
Good point. Yeah.
So if we're building on a finance guy that's threatening to quit and a GM that's uncoachable, we're building it's just a house of falling cards.
And I know you've seen these scenarios.
Oh, for sure.
The reason I bring it up is I just had a recent experience, and I feel bad. Like my heart, when I left, I was like, I felt bad for the dealer because I feel he's being held hostage because you got a 30-year guy, a 25-year guy, and I think in his heart, he's like, I'm going to have a hard time replacing him. Where social media, and I'm not going to say the name of the store, this is a St. Louis store.
Right.
One post on social, I staffed the whole place.
Right. Yeah.
I staffed the whole place.
There is no shortage of good humans out there. We
Yeah.
we convince ourselves. It's usually the path of least resistance. It's easier to keep the problem than it is to go through the pain of trying to fix it. And so a lot of people just stay where it's easy. So it's more comfortable.
What's the biggest difference between a dealership that grows opposed to the one that just gets older?
The dealership that grows executes things quickly and is willing to tear things apart just as quickly as they're willing to put things together. I'll use Brad Wise as a perfect example. Furman Chevrolet down there.
Stud he is.
When Brad and I joined forces and he joined 800% Club in the very beginning, I was doing some work down there. He had just built this entire cradle to grave BDC thing. He had completely emptied out a building, remodeled the entire thing, completely staffed it. He had done all these things. And so I go in there, we start working together, and we go down to that building. And every time we go down to that building, the phone is ringing, leads are coming in, and there's no one in the building. And I said, Brad, where's all the people? And he goes, well, they're all out on test drives. I said, do you see the problem? He said, yeah, it's kind of like, seems like the better they do, the worse it gets. I said, yeah, exactly. The better they are cradle to grave, they're all with a customer. No one's here to answer your leads. You're creating a worse experience for the customer. I said, dude, we got to have some people that are just sitting in these seats that don't ever go out there on a test drive. This is where they're at. Next day, shuts it down, pulls the guys back in, completely changes the thing. Like, he had taken a year to remodel this building, put it all together, so on and so forth. Shuts it down, completely gets rid of the program, goes to the new program, sells 150 more cars a month, 6 months later, right? Like, you have to be willing to throw your ego out the window and say, yeah, we invested in this, but it was the wrong investment. Yep. So let's tear it down and let's do it the right way.
Yeah, the best thing too is, and I've lost a lot. You know, we don't always share our losses. It's a little easier and better to share the wins.
No doubt.
But we learn more from losses than anything. Speaking of which, I'm going to ask you, this is my final question of the segment. This is a good one here. Get ready. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's go.
What leadership lesson has cost you the most money?
The leadership lesson that has cost me the most money is that you need to protect your ass and your assets at all times, because there are many people out there in the world that will try to take advantage of situations and try to take advantage of kindness, trying to take advantage of the opportunities you're giving them. So don't be less kind, but be very careful contractually, legally, those kinds of things to protect your business at all times. We've been in a 3-year frickin', I've spent more money on lawyers over something I could have easily protected if I would have thought to.
Yeah.
But instead I trusted a little too much, if you know what I mean. Yep. So that would be the biggest lesson, is like,
but you're a better version of yourself, right?
Hey, it'll never happen again.
Amen. I had a
and now I got bigger deals going down.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I've had a similar scenario, and I'm not going to, bore you with those details, but I had a situation where I wasn't protected and robbed.
Yeah.
And it stung for a little bit, but
It
I
hurts.
learned you need attorneys in all things.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
This was a great session. As always, you bring so much to our industry. You bring so much value to the show. I know how busy you are, especially you of all. You're very busy. So just you taking the time, flying over here to Atlanta. What is it, over or up? We're at Lexington? No, you're flying. Yeah, you're flying down.
Yeah.
Thanks for flying down. And we just really appreciate having you here at CBT News.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for those that tuned into another episode of Training Camp exclusively on CBT News. Remember, training's not something that we did. It's something that we must do, and we must do it on a continuous basis. And remember, if nothing changes, nothing's going to change. And one final note, fights are never won in the cage. Fights are not won in the ring. Fights are won in training camp. Let's get to work.
Thanks for watching Training Camp with Adam Marburger, exclusively on CBT News.